Hey everyone, it's Chris Loud. In this video, I'm sharing two fast and expressive abstract painting demos. Each of these warm-ups was painted about 15 minutes using a limited palette. I'm also sharing a few pieces that didn't totally land because, let's be honest, not every painting is going to be a winner. And that's okay. Sometimes the weird ones, the flops, the ones that fell apart halfway through, they're where the real creative breakthroughs start. One of the paintings has since grown on me. The other, I'm still undecided. I kind of go back and forth on it. At the end of the video, I'll show close-ups and the final paintings in different orientations, plus one more that didn't quite work out. And before we jump into it, I just want to say a big thank you to HP, Murray, Jude, Eve, and Blanca for your recent Super Thanks donations. That support really helps keep the creative momentum going, and I'm super grateful. You'll see me briefly experiment with a new tool here, a Winsons marker airbrush with cerulean blue marker. It's nothing too dramatic, but just enough to add some texture using a mesh recycled potato bag as my stencil. I'll use this a little bit more in the second demo as well. And as a quick side note, I recently did a video review of this marker airbrush. And since then, Winsons has emailed me a 10% off discount code that I'll leave in the description if anyone's interested in that. So alcohol markers are kind of interesting to use with acrylic paint. I've used them in many paintings. If you use an alcohol marker on top of dried acrylic paint, they typically work like any other marker, but they're not quite as opaque and pigmented as acrylic markers. I'll show you. I'm going to actually bring in a jumbo Artex acrylic marker, and you'll be able to see that it just has a lot more pigment to it and thicker and richer. But if you use alcohol markers and then apply a thin layer of acrylic paint over top of the marks, the moisture in the acrylic paint can reactivate the dried marker pigment on the surface, and it can bleed through a little. I actually think it's kind of a cool effect. It's almost like kind of like a ghost layer. So you'll see it in the second painting more than in this one. But if you apply a thicker layer of acrylic paint, you'll just cover up the marks. So here's that jumbo Artex marker I was talking about there, and you can see that it's a very kind of thick and rich paint that's coming out of that versus an alcohol marker. So for this first piece, I used a limited acrylic palette, ultramarine blue, cadmium yellow medium, light olive green, titanium white, a little brilliant blue, and Mars black. And I'll use the same palette in the second, minus the brilliant blue. And then again, I used cerulean blue with the alcohol marker in that marker airbrush. And when I was finished with this warm-up, I didn't particularly like it. But like I said, its sense has kind of grown on me. There's something about the soft layering and transitions that I didn't notice quite as much as I was laying them down and working on this. I was kind of concentrating more on time and the fact that I didn't really feel like this one was going anywhere. There's a white mark that kind of goes up to the left there, kind of just on its own almost. And I think that's one that maybe is not working real well. But again, I keep looking at it. I also see an eye and almost a face in this. So see if you can see that. It's very abstract, but definitely there. The focal point for me is that white scribble kind of dancing just off center. It gives the piece a spark of energy without really overwhelming the space. I use several tools in this. Color shapers. I've got a stick here and a little bit of a paintbrush. The airbrush, the marker airbrush, and I'm using an Artex acrylic marker here just to get a little bit extra yellow-orange in there for a little interest. But again, it's grown on me. I'm not sure I really like this one a whole lot still. Didn't seem to quite work out as much as I was hoping, but that's okay. The second painting uses the same limited color palette, like I said, minus the brilliant blue, and leans more into the cool tones. I used the marker airbrush again, just lightly, and some bold white lines from the jumbo acrylic marker as well. And while I was working on it, I kept thinking, this just isn't working. But then I'd step back and think, well, actually, maybe. And then it just would kind of keep going that way this whole time. And granted, there's 15 minutes I'm working on this, but I kept feeling like I had a little bit of momentum in a direction, and then it left. So I went with kind of a chaotic layer here, and just kept reaching and looking for something. And I still haven't really landed on how I feel about this one. Sometimes I look at it and it feels really awkward and cluttered and kind of unresolved. And then other times it seems kind of bold and offbeat in a good way. And that's okay. Not every abstract painting needs to resolve itself right away. Some of them just need to exist to lead you to the next one, and that's just part of creating intuitive art. At a minimum, our role as artists is to show up and paint, ideally every day. Even if it's just for a few minutes, even if the painting doesn't work, and many times it won't. Showing up helps us build our rhythm and get more painting reps in. And more reps are one of the best ways to grow and develop your creative voice over time. And, even the pieces that don't work out help us in other ways. They show us what doesn't feel right. They, push us into experiments we might not have tried otherwise. And they make us more emotionally resilient, when it comes to facing creative doubt. And this painting isn't a good one, but the act of creating it, moved me forward, and that's really what counts. And don't get me wrong, I'm I'm always hoping I'll end up with some amazing painting when I'm done. But I also set my expectations every time before I paint. We're here to put paint on a surface, and doing that will end with some result, good or bad. But if we don't do that, we won't move forward creatively. So here I'm using the airbrush again with cerulean blue. I'm not using a stencil. I'm just kind of doodling in a way. I'm just I'm holding it back a little further and letting it be a little softer, and then I'm moving in with more, I guess, kind of thicker lines. And I'll dry it real quick, and then you'll see when I put that paint on how you'll see those, that alcohol marker start bleeding through a little bit, and gives kind of like I said, kind of that ghost layer. But we can learn so much from the paintings that don't fully work. They show us what risks we took or didn't. They point out our patterns and open space for new moves. And you can see, if you watch this, you'll kind of see, since it's sped up, you can already see it kind of bleeding through this layer of white paint. Now, if I did a thicker layer, I would be able to cover that up. But I actually thought this was kind of a cool cool effect. You know, sometimes these paintings that don't seem to work out, you know, they turn into something better with time. You come back and look at them later and think, oh, that actually, there's something to that. But this particular one I thought was just so awkward and so kind of discombobulated that right away I was like, well, okay, well, that didn't work out. But as I've looked at it later, there's something there. There's something kind of odd with it. So, you know, if you're feeling unsure about a painting you made recently, don't get rid of it. Don't write it off. Let it sit. Come back and look at it with fresh eyes. You might be surprised. You might not, but you know, you showed up, you painted, and you developed a little, even if it doesn't feel like it. So here's some close-ups of the first painting and then the final painting in different orientations. So if you like this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more videos like this, feel free to subscribe. And as always, if you have any feedback or questions, I'd love for you to leave me a comment. So I'll show you some close-ups of the second demo painting, and I'll show you that painting in different orientations here. And looking at it now, there's something there that draws my eye, and could be that area of the airbrush that has bled through, kind of looks like an eye. But I'll also show you this third painting that is a little more rough and didn't seem to work out real well. But thanks for watching, and keep on painting, especially if your paintings aren't working out. Just keep on painting.